Good morning everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do an editing video, which I haven't done in a really long time. I've been back and forth between Kelowna and the Thompson Okanagan a lot for the past few weeks, and normally when I edit my photos I like to keep them really natural. But the last couple times that I've been going out to the Thompson Okanagan, I've kind of come back with a photo where when I go to edit it naturally, it just doesn't really fit the vibe of what I was feeling or the expression or the feeling that I want to convey. And then the other day, I was actually listening to a video while I was getting ready by Robynne, who talked about how during post-processing, it's your opportunity to convey a feeling or what you were feeling or an expression through how you are editing the photo. And this video couldn't have come at a better time because this was happening to me the last few times. And so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to show you the set of photos that when I edited them naturally, they just didn't really sit well with me, and I ended up editing the photos a lot darker than what I typically do. And then we're going to experiment with a photo that I took back in July, also back in the Thompson Okanagan, where when I edited the photo again naturally, it's okay, but I just feel like it's missing something. So let's get into it. Alright, so these are the summer foliage shots that I got recently while I was in the Thompson Okanagan. They were featured in that video a couple weeks ago featuring intimate landscape photography, but these were the photos where I edited them naturally at first and they just didn't really fit like the vibe that I was feeling or the feeling that I just generally wanted to convey in the photos. So the ones that I specifically want to point out are these ones. So the first one is this one right here. And I had mentioned in the video that what first kind of attracted me to this set of leaves, this set of summer foliage in the environment, was just how the light was hitting the leaves and really like emphasizing like the pattern and like the color. And so when I edited them naturally at first, and this is what it looks like kind of raw before I do any sort of post-processing, and I just really wanted to kind of emphasize and pop the leaves and then really like darken and blacken the background. So the leaves are really like popping in the foreground. So normally when I edit, I keep like my shadows, my blacks, everything's fairly, I don't do a lot of post-processing. I keep it fairly natural, like I said earlier. But I wasn't feeling that in these photos. So what I did to kind of convey that feeling that I talked about earlier is in a lot of these photos, I completely kind of darken the shadows and I darken the blacks, so it looks something like this where the leaves are popping and then the background is pretty dark. Another example is this one. This is the before. I really just liked all of like the ferns that I was seeing on the side of the walkway, and in this one I just liked how you had all of these ferns in the background and then you had this other fern leaf kind of spiraling in, and this is what it looks like in raw before post-processing, and it's just the word I guess I would describe it is flat, I suppose. And so when I edited them, I really wanted to make this primary fern in the foreground pop and then really kind of darken the rest of it. Again, dark and poppy is what I was kind of feeling and going for in all of these photos. So for this one, what I did is, again, I kept my shadows and my blacks really dark, and then to further kind of make all of these background ferns even kind of darker to make the first one pop, I used quite a bit of the graduated filter to basically darken all of these background ferns. So I have a graduated filter going this way, and then I did another graduated filter to make it pop that way. And I don't think I ended up using the adjustment brush at all. I think I just used the graduated filter for this one. But that's kind of what I was doing in this photo to make it kind of dark and poppy. And then the last photo that I wanted to talk about was this one. So this one was actually one of the last set of photos that I took while I was making my way back to the campsite. And what I really liked about this photo was that you have like just leaves that you see in the environment, and I'm trying to find the one. Oh, so it's this one. So, I mean, you have leaves like this that are just kind of in the environment. But what I liked about these ones were it has this like white lining on the outside of the leaves. And at first, I did kind of question if maybe it could have been a poisonous leaf. Still don't know if it's a poisonous leaf, but I didn't touch it. And with this photo and with these leaves, I just liked the white detail on the leaves. And then again, the pattern of the leaves. And so when I was editing this photo, this is what it looks like kind of before raw. The shadows are already fairly dark, but I really wanted to, again, make the background dark and then make the leaves poppy. So again, I basically edited them a little bit on the darker side. So I took the shadows and the blacks, I toned them way down. And then I think that was the only thing that I had to do because it was already fairly dark. The background was already fairly dark. So I didn't go in, it looks like, with a further graduated filter, just kind of darkening the shadows and the blacks. So these were the first set of images recently where when I edited them naturally, they just didn't really fit the vibe that I was feeling or that I wanted to convey. I wanted to convey dark and poppy. And I really wanted to like emphasize like the lush greenness of the Thompson Okanagan. And I mentioned in that video, I think, that the Thompson Okanagan, it's a very lush green environment. Out of the entire Okanagan, if you go south, you will experience kind of a soil, and it's a very semi-desert, and you can probably tell that in the photos that I took when I was exploring a soil. And then when you come into the Kelowna area, it's central Okanagan, and it's actually it's kind of in between. You have a little bit of like lush greenness, but we're still a semi-desert, and you can tell kind of by looking at some of the mountains in our surrounding area. And then when you go to the North Okanagan, Thompson Okanagan, you experience something quite different. It's quite lush and green out that way. And so I just really wanted to convey all of that in these photos, and I was just feeling that the natural edit wasn't doing the job. So the photo we're actually going to experiment with is one that I took a few weeks ago. It was from my first trip to the Thompson Okanagan, and it was of a loon family. So I'm going to pull up that image and we're going to do kind of an editing experiment together. All right, so this is the photo that we're actually going to do the Lightroom kind of editing experiment with. So I took this photo on my first trip to the Thompson Okanagan, and I was on the boat with my dad when this like loon family just kind of swam by, and I snapped this photo. And so what I really liked about it was how the loons were just like kind of in this perfect lineup, and I couldn't unfortunately get the dad in the photo because he was actually further ahead. He wasn't grouped in with the three here, but I really like this photo. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to crop it because I really want the family to be in the center and just create something very minimalistic. So I'm going to crop it first and play with that. So I think I like that. Now, when I was taking this photo, it was already pretty smoky. So during this trip, it was fairly smoky in the Thompson Okanagan, and it's already, you can definitely tell because in the before photo, in the photo that you kind of, in the full frame photo before I kind of cropped it, you can see that on the tree line and everything, it was pretty hazed out, and it's just because it's super smoky right now here in the Okanagan in general. And when I look at this photo, there's just something about it. I think it's the color. And normally I love color. I mean, you saw in the set of photos earlier, I love color. And so when I edit this photo kind of naturally, which I'll just do right now real quickly. All right, so this is a fairly natural edit. This is typically what I would do with a lot of my photos. You can tell in the before and the after editing, it's not like a huge difference, and I keep it fairly natural. But when I look at this photo, the natural edit just doesn't completely fit the vibe that I was feeling and again, the feeling that I want to convey. So it wasn't actually until like a couple weeks later when I was looking at this photo that I thought black and white. Now, normally I absolutely love color. And have you ever looked at like a set of photos where one was in color and one was in black and white, and the black and white just seems to fit it way better than the color photo? And this first came to me actually when I got my engagement photos done, is the photographer had sent us color and black and white photos. And when I looked at them, I actually ended up liking more of the black and white photos than the color photos. So I find that really interesting because, especially for myself, when I love color. So what I actually want to do is I want to try editing this photo in black and white. Now, I am really new to the sort of black and white photography and black and white post-processing. There's a lot I have to learn and experiment and explore. So what I've been doing just to kind of learn the whole black and white post-processing workflow is I'm just going to use first the black and white function in Lightroom, and I do still really need to experiment and work with Olympus Workspace, but I just haven't gotten there yet, and so one day I'll get there. So one of the things that I think I'm gonna do is I am just honestly going to play around with all of the tools that we have in here. So it's originally set to 6,000, and I think I'm gonna keep all of that the way it is. Now, I'm going to, I did have it at 30. If I go back to not changing the exposure at all, I think 30 might be too much with the black and white. So maybe I'll put it at 15 for now. And then contrast was at 15. If I do that, it's way too contrasted. But if I do that, I actually might like a lighter contrast. Because it's black and white, I don't want it to be too stark and like, ooh, in your face. So I think I'm actually going to do something like that. And then with the highlights, normally I have it around -25. But if I bring it all the way up, I don't like that. If I bring it down maybe a little bit, maybe something like that. And then shadows, it was at 25. Now, I don't like that because it's way too dark. So what I might do is actually keep it around there as well. And then with the whites, let's see here. So if we turn the whites way down, I actually kind of like that. If we turn the whites way up, no. And this is honestly how I learned editing to begin with, is I literally just played around with the sliders. So I don't like that. I kind of like it around, do I like it around there, or do I want to go? No, I think I like it around, there. And then with the blacks, so if I turn them all the way up, no, turn them all the way down, I think I want the blacks to be pretty dark, but I don't want it to be too black that it comes off too stark. I feel like that's too stark. Maybe something like that. I almost want like a softer black and white photo. And then if we play with the clarity, let's see here, that's way too something. I think I like it around, I think I like it around there. And then I don't play with the tonal curve a ton. I try to play with it in every odd photo, but a lot of times I end up not liking the tonal curve edit. So I don't oftentimes play with this, even though I know I should be, because everyone talks about the tonal curve, but I just don't end up playing with this a ton. But let's see here. Actually, I kind of like that. It's more of like a gray, I feel. Not so much black, white, but kind of like different shades of gray. And then let's see here. I don't think I'm going to play with any of that. And if I kind of zoom in, let's see here. Yeah, so this is the before. And this is the after so far. Now what I might do is that fairly symmetrical? I think that's a little bit more symmetrical. Now what I might do is actually go in with a little bit of the adjustment brush. Oh, so I want to just kind of go in and brush over the plumage. I like doing this for my bird photos because I really want to make their plumage pop. So maybe I'll just kind of go in with this and kind of roughly go in, cover up the entire bird, like that, and zoom out a little. Where is it? Make sure it's selected. Okay, so if we start from there, actually, I don't like editing when I'm doing that adjustment brush. I find it really hard because I'm trying to kind of look at the subject and then the rest of the photo, and I find if I'm zoomed in too much then I can't honestly tell what is going on with my bird. So I think I'm going to keep it around there. Contrast. I don't want to fiddle around with this too much, but I think maybe there. I want to make the detail in her foliage pop, so we're going to go about there. Ooh, maybe like that. Maybe around there. And no, I kind of like that. All right, so I think I am pretty happy with that edit so far. I don't play around with black and white photography a ton. This is just something that I recently started exploring into and kind of in the post-processing flow of it all, playing around with black and white photography. And most of the black and white photography that I've been playing around with is actually photos that I take of my family at, events and stuff like that, like birthdays and Father's Day and stuff like that. Just kind of taking the photos and then editing them afterwards, kind of black and white style, and then in color. I don't honestly play around a lot with it in the landscape because I like color. I love, the green lushness of summer and then the autumn color. So I don't really play with it a lot in the kind of like landscape form or nature form. But for some reason, this photo, just when I look at it naturally, it's okay. It's okay. And when I looked at it, I just felt something was missing about the edit, missing about the photo, but I like the simplicity of it, how the Smoky had created basically this blank canvas and how we had these loons kind of front and center in the frame. But when it came to editing, I just kind of felt something was missing. So I personally, I think, like it better as black and white, kind of more on the muted gray side. But that is basically, I think, the photography experiment, and this whole kind of not keeping my photos to the natural side and playing more with post-processing and playing more with what is the feeling that I was feeling when I was taking the photo and what is the feeling that I want to convey in the photo is something that I want to kind of pay more attention to and not be so much of a mechanical robot when it comes to editing. All right, everyone, so that is everything for today's video. I'll leave a link down in the description to the video by Alistair Ben that made me really pensive about my post-processing editing workflow. If you like this video, hit that like button below and subscribe. Maybe buy me a cup of coffee, and I'll see you in the next one.